This workshop to order. If you can, let's stand up and I'll lead us in a word of prayer and then we'll get started. Father, thank you for this time as we're on the ending of the Resurrection Sunday, Lord. We just stop and reflect on all the good things you've done for us, Jesus, and we just appreciate the gift, the price you paid. Lord, pray that you give us wisdom as we make decisions that are critical to the future of this city, that you'll guide our steps and our plans. And Lord, we pray that you'll make a way for us, and we thank you for this opportunity that we have to serve you here and serve the citizens of Minden. It's in your name, Jesus, we pray. Amen. Amen. Alrighty. So, something that Tyler and myself have been working on, Russell Pools and Gary Moreland's been looking at this too. Something that we wanted to present to y'all this evening, and that's why we're meeting at 4:30. Is we're going to need a little more time. But we had John and Flint come in from Integrity Company and present to us a potential plan for solar. And I really don't know how y'all feel about that. I know before we took office, there was discussion about doing a solar area, and then it looked like solar was going to cost more than it's worth. And now these guys have come in. You know, it's a new world for Minden. We're getting our power through LIPA, and so that doesn't limit the amount of generation we could do on our side of the meter, so to speak, where with our old contract we were limited. So the climate has changed for us, but simultaneously the climate with power demand in the environment is also changing. I'm sure you are aware that there's a little something called AI out there that's pulling a lot of load in these data centers. And so after several meetings with this company and these guys, and I'll introduce y'all here in a second and turn the floor over to y'all, I thought it would be good for y'all to hear them out, see what you think, see if it, just ask any questions you have, and then I'd like to have y'all's opinion on it. So we have with us John Coleman, and we also have Flint Richter, and they're from Integrity, which is based out of
Little Rock, Arkansas.
Little Rock, Arkansas. So they've journeyed from afar to be here with us tonight, and they have a small presentation. If y'all would give them your attention, and thank y'all for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to be here, Mayor. Appreciate everybody's time. Mayor mentioned LIPA and the contract that y'all have with them. We work with a lot of municipal electric utilities really around the Midwest and Southeast, and y'all are all in very similar situations where most of the time you're buying power through contracts like a LIPA to make up 100% of the consumption within your community, right? More recently, a lot of local power companies have been trying to figure out how to take at least a percentage of that and do some of your own generation, so you kind of have control over that percentage and then avoid some of the market volatility that's occurring out there. LIPA has been going through what's called the Integrated Resource Plan over the last 6 months. So they have a consultant that is looking at all the member cities, including Minden, and determining how you consume power versus the power purchasing agreements that they have. And solar and battery storage have been two of the top investments that have been recommended to LIPA for them, and then also member cities. So we've been working closely with Kevin Ben as well. All the information I'm going to show you is information that LIPA has seen as well. And in fact, we're presenting again to LIPA in a couple of weeks, and one of their consultants on this very information again, just to kind of keep the conversation going. But over that period, we had been introduced to Mayor Cox, have looked at a specific piece of property in the community just at a high level and what solar might look like there, high level cost analysis, savings component, and some of the engineering that would be required, et cetera. And so that's what we want to go over tonight for y'all. And obviously I've got some slides here. We think it's going to be somewhere around 20 minutes of information, but if you have questions along the way, please jump in and ask away, and we'll try to do our best to answer those. So, as Mayor Cox asked, we're based out of Little Rock, Arkansas. That's where our headquarters is. We also have a senior engineer down in Baton Rouge. We're doing a lot of energy efficiency projects in the state. He's leading. Got office in Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Kansas City, Springfield, Missouri. The green states there where we've worked across the country. So even though we're relatively close here, we're working across the country on projects like this. And we do everything from energy efficiency to solar, battery storage. And then our parent company is a company called Nabholz Group, and they will do about $1.5 billion in construction this year. They're also based out of Central Arkansas, and have worked all around the country as well. So this, what I'm going to talk a little bit about specifically in Minden, y'all have a system peak of about 37 megawatts, which is pretty sizable. The solar projects that we're looking at, or the project that we're looking at, would range anywhere from 2 to 4 megawatts. So we're not talking about trying to generate solar to offset a huge percentage of your total load. It really is about trying to responsibly carve out a percentage of that and just be able to lock that pricing in and know that you're going to get that production, which would reduce the dependence upon those LIPA contracts overall, as we were talking about, and provided just a little more kind of consensus or continuity in the pricing side. Right now, you're paying about 7 cents a kilowatt hour for that power, and then a demand charge of about $7 a kilowatt. So when we look at these solar projects, they're typically anywhere from about 3.5 cents to 5 cents a kilowatt hour. So that kind of gives you an idea of the savings level that we're talking about as well. It's just, the reality is with some federal incentives that are available and the cost to build these, it's just a cheaper form of energy as long as it's applied correctly. And so far, the early analysis that we've done on the land and whatnot, we think we can achieve those types of numbers. So the savings there is could be really strong, and then obviously, like I said, about 7%, 5 to 7% of your total load offset. We're going to talk a little bit in detail about the process and how we get there. I'm going to talk a little bit about the modeling so you can see what we've looked at so far.
Okay, thanks, John. Flint Richter again. Thank you all for your time today. I've been in the solar industry for almost 30 years, and I like to dig into the details and do the modeling for us. Mayor Cox shared your interval data. So this interval data is a look at how much energy the whole city uses every 15 minutes. So it gives us a really detailed graph of how you use power in the city. And so this is looking at 7 days. This was in April. And we only had 10 months of data from when we started using LIPA till the current time that we got the data. So we're working with 10 months of data. And what we'd like to look for are opportunities here. So the dark blue was the original load the city has. And then the green down at the bottom, you can see it's small. That is a 2 megawatt solar array modeled against the city's usage. And then the light blue is what the city's load is after the solar. So the one thing that I like to look at here and see is that the solar production in the middle of the day really lines up with the high peaks that where the city's usage is highest. So that means that high usage periods, the solar has a lot of value and it's going to be consumed in the city. Now you can tell there's a big gap between the solar and the low points, the troughs in that data. So this means that you have a lot of capacity of solar you could add in the future if you wanted to be like 2 megawatts, 3 megawatts. You could add up to 5, 6 megawatts and still not feed back onto LIPA. So we like to work with cities and look for opportunities. In this case, we can see that the solar energy generation lines up really well with the city's usage and could help lower your costs and drive savings for 30 plus years, which is the warranty period for these modules. We also worked with another city in Arkansas. This is Hope, Arkansas. So there is warranty here right across the Arkansas line. They
Real
like
quick
you.
on that one, I just want to interject.
Sure.
So Hope is on the SWEPCO agreement that y'all were on previously. And what's interesting is SWEPCO has come back to them in the last year since y'all moved off of them. and is allowing them to do a small percentage of their own generation now because of some of the capacity constraints that they're starting to see because of AI data centers and some of the load growth, right? It's kind of interesting that y'all have moved off of them in a better position now, but now Hope is getting some of that flexibility that Flint's going to talk about here. So we're developing a project with them as well.
Just like the other graph, we have the same things. The dark blue is the original load, the light blue is the new load, and the green, that's the solar that we're proposing. What's different here is that we're adding battery storage to this scenario, and that's the tan lines in the middle. And SWEPCO charges them based on SWEPCO's coincident peak. So the system-wide peak for SWEPCO happens typically from 4 till 7 in the afternoon on summer days. And so if Hope can reduce their demand during those times, they get a lot of savings. And so you're seeing those 2-hour periods every weekday where we're turning the battery on, reducing their demand, and getting savings for the client. Hope's KW demand rate is $17.50 right now, where it used to be 12, and it's gone up like almost every year for the past 5 years. So the biggest opportunity here for them was a little bit of solar and a lot of battery storage to reduce their costs and help them keep their costs low and pass it on to their constituents.
Yeah, so think about the agreement, y'all are paying $7 per kW now. If you're still in the old agreement, you would be at $17.50. So in a better spot, but that's kind of, we're looking at all those variables with each community that we're working with and analyzing the same thing with Minden.
And then this is a project we're working on in Anthony, Kansas. We're gonna be up there tomorrow night, actually, to talk to them. They sent out an RFP for a 1 megawatt solar array. Again, we received their interval data, and same story, dark blue is original load, the light blue is the new load, and the green is their solar. We realized that the solar lined up really well with their peaks when they were buying high cost power on the market, and there was a lot of savings there. So now they're considering, instead of the one megawatt RFP, they want to actually do 2.5 megawatts. So they saw there was a lot of value there, and while they're at it, they just wanted to go ahead and get something bigger if they could see the value. So they went from 7% offset to roughly 15% offset of their load. So we're seeing the same story, it's just in different towns, and you buy power in different ways. And so that's what our job is, to come in, look at the data, help you figure out what's the best way to save money and pass those savings on to your constituents, hopefully.
So the property that we were provided to take a look at is just in southeast Minden, adjacent to the ballparks. I've got another view on the next slide that's a little bit better. This is an array layout, just again, kind of high level plan view. We would look at both a tracking array, so a lot of the solar farms you see, they'll wake up in the morning with the sun and then track with the sun throughout the day to maximize the amount of energy that you're getting out of those modules. And that's typically the most cost effective. But then we'll also look at what's called a fixed array, which is just basically angling south facing. The sun moves across the modules throughout the day, and depending on the situation, will determine the best financial return. But we've got modeled here a tracking array. It's 3 megawatts. So to give you kind of an idea of size, 1 megawatt is typically around 5 to 7 acres of solar. So we're looking anywhere from 15 to 20 acres of property that we'd be utilizing. And again, as I mentioned before, somewhere between a 4 and 7% offset for your total energy consumption. So not trying to be super aggressive here, but kind of a good entry point. You are eligible for a 50% federal incentive for the project, which obviously is huge for this. There is a timeline associated with that where we would need to be started procuring some of the equipment by July 3rd of this year. So it's sped up a little bit, which is part of the urgency of Mayor wanting to have this presentation and get some feedback and inform next steps.
John, just so everybody knows, the
Sure.
land that we kind of were looking at is the land by the animal shelter down there.
Yeah, that's a
Just
little.
so y'all know, kind of by Yule Park across the street, the city owns a lot of land that's wooded back in that way.
I was trying to see, does it go to the street? Doesn't
We-
go to the street.
What we would like to do is leave like a tree line. I can't really tell where I'm at on that map.
Yeah, sorry, I
For
didn't.
some reason.
So it
Should
looks
have
like
had-
we're starting right there by when you come in on
Yes, that's
Right
Wood,
beside the, shelter.
it's Wood Street there to the west.
But in your drawing here, you have a tree line by the road.
Yes.
The road, you can't even see Yule Park.
Is the,
Mill Street.
you'll park to the left?
It's to the north.
Oh, okay. Oh, you can't pick up. I got you. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't have a zoomed out view
That's
here,
okay.
but generally you can see this. We did, so, well, let me go ahead and move to the next slide. This is a land analysis including floodplain. And so you can see a lot of the floodplain there to the east and southeast and even the ball fields that are in that. And this land is elevated just enough to where we've got a decent amount of property that we could incorporate solar. And there would be some clearing and grubbing that would have to occur on the site, but it's an old wastewater lagoon, I guess, from 30 years ago that had been abandoned. And so, you know, we can utilize that space to do something productive with it. This design that I showed you before is far from set. It was really just, you know, let's look at this. We haven't gone out and done any geotechnical analysis of the site, and we've done a little bit of topography analysis, but the geotech and then even interconnection with the distribution system and what that would look like, we always have to, you know, firm that up as we go through the engineering and design process. That would help define costs. But, you know, we've done 60 of these that are online and generating energy, and we've got another 17 or so in development like this, and so we can use that experience and cost data to inform some of the general return on investment that we're talking about here. So we feel
So say what you just said, you have 60?
60 of these projects that are around 1 to 10 megawatts in
Okay.
range that are energized and generating energy, and then we've got another 17 that are in either development or construction right now that are of similar size. And so when we talk about some of the cost analysis that I was describing before and the savings, it's really informed from that experience versus what we've learned about the site to date. So,
Two things as John continues this presentation, and I want y'all to catch that he said, is we qualify for a 50% federal match.
Right.
The second thing is, it expires, the project has to be moving forward by July 3rd. And so that's why I asked them to come on in to this council meeting, so y'all would be aware of it, because the tricky part is we're gonna run out of time. It's not something we can just drag our feet on. The 50% credit goes away. Now, that's not a hard sales pitch on my part. I'm really indifferent to it. I'll hold my thoughts for the end, but just keep going.
yeah, I think part of the, there's a formal procurement process that you have to go through in order to select engineering, construction management, to be able to move to this. And so there are going to be jumping off points along the way as you get more information and the project becomes more fully baked, if you will. But for now, based on the analysis, we feel really confident there's going to be good savings, and it's worth pursuing, doing some of the legwork to try to get there, to be able to get that incentive. So I mentioned the floodplain analysis. I've just got a couple of slides left, really. This is a project that we did for Searcy Utility, which is in north central Arkansas. This is an old wastewater lagoon as well that they abandoned. So very similar, where we were working in very similar conditions. This is actually a fixed array that we did there, not one of the tracking ones that tracks with the sun. And then this is one at an economic development authority industrial park. That's a tracking array that would be, this one is actually a little bit smaller than what would likely end up happening for y'all. But relatively small footprint on the solar side. The upside would be, as I mentioned, you'd be able to generate some of your own energy and kind of have control over that cost for that period of time and just not be subject to the market volatility that is happening out there within LIPA, which is why, when we talked to Kevin at LIPA about this, he's looking at this and he's really interested in even developing some of their own assets to do the same thing. So it's a good position. There's steps that you can take going forward without being out any funds initially to really try to firm up what this would look like before you have to make any real financial decisions down the road. But from an information standpoint, we think it looks really good to pursue. So. I think that's it. Oh yeah, I had just a couple of slides here. This is a picture of one of our arrays where, you know, on site we went in and did native flower plantings that, you know, the community wanted instead of just doing kind of vegetation mowing there. So there's some creativity that you can kind of incorporate into the design features there. This is one where we partnered with the Future Farmers of America, the adjacent school where they run sheep on the property. So there are different uses if you wanted to get creative on that side of it as well as we move into it. But yeah, that's what we had so far.
I have one question.
Yes.
And I'm not a scientist, but there used to be a city waste the ground there. Is it solid ground? Would they go in and redo the ground to do this, or they just leave it? How would they do
That's
it?
a great question. So this is one of the first things we would do is geotechnical analysis of the site and determine, so we drive piles, structural piles into the ground and then put the racking on top of those. And then the array sits on top of that racking. So one of the first things we do is what's called a pull test, where you drive the steel piles into the ground and then determine the resistance, the structural integrity of the soil, essentially. So, you know, it's something we haven't done yet. We do have that example where we worked in a similar condition at Searcy, and it worked out really well. So we know that we've, you know, been through this before. But certainly the geotechnical analysis and then the interconnection, which would be the medium voltage work that we would have to do to push the power onto your distribution grid, that design has to be completed too, to really inform the full pricing of the project.
We're in the very beginning stages of this, but we met with them several times. They've even gone and met with Kevin at LIPA at least 2 times. And of course, we got LIPA to pull a lot of our data for us so we can provide them with numbers to analyze. You know, my thinking is, you know, the city of Minden historically, for the last 100 years, with the exception of the last 12 years or more, has always been in the power generation business. Several of us have discussed, we wish we had a little independence. With our old contract, we really weren't even allowed to have our own independence. But a little bit of resiliency seems like a good business move, especially if we could do something that would demonstrate really clearly that it would pay for itself in a short amount of time and then provide for us a return on our investment. And so this project's a little, while it's complicated, and the part I don't like is it's a time crunch to get the federal incentive, but nonetheless, outside of that, it's not a hard project to comprehend. Solar panels, it would provide electricity. I was in the meeting, so was Gary Moreland and Tyler Wallace, where we met with LIPA and the Energy Authority, which is that consultant group that LIPA hired that John referred to earlier. We were at that meeting, and through that, we kind of discovered that one way to kind of shed a little of our demand load on our power is solar, batteries, other power generation things. And so when John emailed me, it was already on my mind, solar and maybe battery backup, which battery backup might be something we want to look at as a phase 2 on this project once this is kind of in place and maybe even paid off. I don't know how we would tackle that, but it just, running a power crew like we do, and making these decisions for the citizens, electric costs, it seems like a good idea to invest in something that could shield us from environmental increases in costs. So that's kind of where my head's at. We don't have to do this. Lord knows the city itself has a lot of projects going on right now, and we all have a lot to manage, and Public Works is already very busy. But I do think it's something that I'd like y'all's feedback on. I mean, Y'all have any thoughts or questions?
Did I hear there was a 30-year warranty?
Yes, sir. So the solar modules themselves have a 30-year power warranty.
So, okay, it's just the modules, not the complete
And then
system.
the inverters would have at least a 10-year warranty, which can be extended to 20.
Okay,
And then the racking is another 10-year warranty.
okay.
It's
Inverters usually, what is the lifespan on those, like 10 years?
it's 10 to 15 typically, yes. We use a inverter called SMA, they're German but US made. They're very robust, but yes, they do have a lifespan like a VCR or any electronics.
Okay.
One of the things we would do in the cash flow analysis when we look at these is you have your costs for all of that equipment up front. You're gonna generate savings, but taking a portion of that savings and developing an operations and maintenance budget annually, but some of that is putting in reserve so that when the warranties are up on this equipment, you've got money set aside to do equipment replacement.
So you said, I heard you say maintenance, but, so what is the anticipated cost of maintenance yearly on a system this size?
Yeah, and typically we budget $15 per KW, which I know is kind of a various number out there, but because you have your own electric utility, you've got people on staff that are used to doing a lot of the maintenance that goes along with these types of projects. And so the utilities would typically take on that O&M. They just need the budget associated with it to be able to do the equipment replacement over time. Now, we provide O&M services as well and certainly can, provide that contract and manage it. But, more likely with the utility, since you own your own electric utility, we would just help you budget for that year over year.
Okay.
So
Well,
did I-
is this something that you guys were willing to take on? I see you sitting here, and I mean, so I assume that you'd be for it, but, I mean, real, okay. I know you guys do a ton already, so I would just want to ask you before, I make my.
It's doable.
Okay, okay.
So did you tell us how much a project this size would cost?
I don't think I did. So, I mean, if we typically, right now, we're budgeting about $2 a watt. So if it's a 3 megawatt array, that'd be about $6 million. That sizing is flexible. And so that's part of it. It's like, how big do you want the project to look? How much money do you want to provide towards the project? You can do cash purchase. You can do debt financing, like a tax exempt lease purchase. So a project we're presenting tomorrow night, that utility is going to provide a down payment essentially on the project that is the same amount as the federal incentive that they're gonna get. And so they're gonna put that down towards the project, finance the remaining, and then when the federal incentive comes back, they'll replenish their capital budget with the federal incentive, and then just keep the financing over the remaining period. Those tend to look really good on these projects because you are generating savings that is greater than what you were already paying for power. So if you think about the cost of this power, say it's 5 cents and you're paying LEPA 7, you're gonna be paying cheaper cost for that power, and get that savings over time. So we can look at those different structures. We've done a number of different ways of financing the projects, and we don't make any money off of that. So we just want you to figure out what's best for you.
So you can give us those numbers for those scenarios pretty quick?
Yes, we can show you cash purchase versus a lease purchase. For a little while, there was a power purchase agreement where there were some equity investment that was happening, that had become really popular. Over the last couple of years, that market's turned a little bit, so it's not as financially viable, but we've done quite a few different options. Yes, we can show you.
Were other pieces of city-owned property considered or looked at for this, besides the one over by you?
Well, not really. It's a big tract of land that we have right there, and we really don't have another area with that much available land that would be kind of flat that I'm aware of.
The key is not having to buy any property.
That was very important. We already have it, and we would leave a good tree line to where it wouldn't even be visible to the public. We wouldn't want to bother anybody with it. And so,
So the properties that we have is like 32 acres right there. You know, why not do more of the property?
We could. I mean, that's part, I think the phase that we're in right now is we were showing kind of a high level look and say, hey, if you did this size and based on our costs on recent projects, kind of overlay that, this is what it would look like. But if we get in and go through the procurement process and we end up getting selected and we help develop the design, we can look at larger and maximizing the property, or smaller based on budget constraints or whatever the constraints are. There may be a limit when we interconnect with the distribution system on how much power it can take. So we have to keep that analysis in mind as well. So those factors are all in play as we're kind of juggling what this thing looks like.
What's the largest project y'all done?
We've got a little over 10 megawatts altogether. We've got in Nashville, Arkansas, which is southwest Arkansas, we've got a project that's right around that size. So yeah, I'd say that one. We've got another one that's about that same size, so we've done a couple at that scale. We did, Mississippi State University, they have the largest on-site solar array in the SEC. We designed and built that, so we've worked with large universities kind of behind the meter, if you will, and then do projects like this with utilities as well. So it's quite a wide
Did you
range.
do the solar plant go up 49 going to Texarkana?
We did not do that one. No, that's a utility scale. Like, we kind of consider ourselves a distribution scale, so 1 to 15 megawatts. That is hundreds and hundreds of acres, probably hundreds of megawatts. I don't know the exact size, but similar technology. The tracking, the way that it tracks with the sun,
Right.
just a smaller scale.
What about if we had a flood and it ruined everything?
Right.
Is that covered by warranty?
It would be insurance. You would have the array would be insured. Part of the reason, the first thing we do is land analysis is make sure we're not building in the floodplain part. So that section that we're focused on was out of that. So we feel like you're pretty protected there. But certainly, things can happen. And so that's why we have insurance on the array.
What's the typical height of these solar panels from ground?
You want to talk through that?
Yeah,
Before
so
taking up all
like
the
John
options?
was saying, we drive these steel piles on the ground. They're typically, like chest high to head high, depending on the topography of it. And so they're typically 14 to 18 feet long. We drive, at least 10 feet to the ground, so 5 to 6 feet out of the ground. And that allows the modules that sit on top, they're flat on there. So then they tilt, the east in the morning, and so that leaves about 2 feet to 18 inches off the ground. And so that's the geometry of it all.
And then the inverters could be elevated on
Yes, that's
an
part of
elevated
our-
platform.
Yes, sir, that's part of our civil work, so we determine a base flood elevation, so we know what the, base flood is, and then we'll build up gravel where we need to, concrete pad, put all the AC equipment, inverters, at least 2 feet above the BFE,
Right.
base flood elevation, if not more, depending on the cost, to keep raising stuff, and we have to balance that cost to raise equipment with maybe just not using that part of the land. And that's, when you show pictures of the sheep and the pretty flowers in our arrays, we don't like tall growing grass. So like a Johnson grass or something that gets head high, we're gonna come in and kill that first, and then we can put in lower growing stuff. Some people will even like to put gravel, but that still takes chemical treatment.
Right.
So there's gonna be some ongoing, like John said, that $15 per KW for ongoing O&M. About half of that's the mowing cost. The rest would be just ongoing electrical maintenance.
I know I spoke about warranty earlier. I was thinking, if you guys, let's say, were to go out of business, who would handle the warranty then? Does the warranty die if the company dies, or is there someone who would?
Well, we're selecting manufacturers who are very stable. So First Solar would be our module manufacturer. They would carry a 30-year solar panel warranty. Then we're going to do SMA on inverters. They are a massive, very old electronics company based in Germany, but with a U.S. division. Then the racking is ATI. They've been around for at least 20 years. So we have all these companies that are very reputable that are carrying your equipment warranties.
Okay.
You know, we have a 1-year workmanship warranty, and so if we went out of business during that period, I guess that would be lost. But, you know, we've been around for 75 years.
Our parent company has been around since the 1940s. Will continue to be around.
But that is a very important question, because
Yes.
if you choose companies that are unstable, then you can lose a long warranty, and that's a bad feeling.
Hail would fall under insurance.
Insurance, yes.
Cybersecurity. We all know hackers are out here.
Yes.
With AI and everything else, it's getting easier for them to hack. Who handles that? Is that something that you guys, or is that something that we have to have in place to make sure that that doesn't happen to us?
So, I mean, the big thing is we would not be tying into your SCADA in the sense that it would have access, like communication access in that way. So that would not subject you to your whole system grid to that problem. So that would be one.
And you can choose to whether you can have the data from the solar, so all these arrays have a data acquisition system that pulls all the data from all the components, which you can check online and see if everything's working as it should be. That can be hosted locally, to where you have to go out to the site and look at it, and that's the safest. Of course, that can also be hosted on the cloud, you know, which is more convenient, but does open up a portal for nefarious types. So you can make those choices on how you want to access the data from the system. And you could connect it to the SCADA, but that's just another portal into your whole system SCADA, which would not be.
I just don't want to leave us, you know, out in the open,
Right.
basically a sitting duck for someone to come in and hold all of our constituents, you know?
Yeah.
If I be living in the area, I have 2 more questions. That would be, what about termination and also overload? Would you have a system, if y'all come in to overload the system, just break down?
That's part of the electrical engineering study. So we would do a whole system study, electrical engineering, and they would look at all the conductors, all the breakers, voltage regulators, all the equipment on that line that the solar would connect to. And we would look for that exact thing. We don't want to overload a breaker, have it trip, and
Right.
shut off 20 city blocks.
Right.
So, and a lot of times we have to upgrade systems, so we might upgrade a breaker that's not rated for bidirectional power flow, or we might upgrade a voltage regulator. There's things that we have to do sometimes to.
And what about ground contamination, if you have that?
I think the biggest thing that, you know, transformers, we have normal transformers, pad mounted, the green big pad mount boxes. Those, you know, have oil in them still, and that could get in the ground. That'd be like the worst thing. You know, all the solar panels are sealed. You know, even if you bust one up, it's just pieces of glass. So there's very little way for that to contaminate the soil. It's silica, which is basically sand, and some plastic bits. Inverters are just electronics. So I feel that, you know, it's pretty safe, but it's a good question. And, you know, First Solar, the company that makes the solar panels, they have a recycling program that when this is decommissioned, they will take those panels back and recycle them back into new panels. So we don't want a big pile of them laying out on the site somewhere someday.
That's contamination.
Yes, sir.
These were really good questions. Tyler, you probably like me, I sit here and listen to the council's questions, and they're the same questions we've already asked them almost identically. So either we're all asking good questions or we're all asking terrible questions. We're all asking the same questions.
Those are good questions. I mean, it's not 100% risk-free, nothing is, but, you know, we do feel like it's a really good opportunity. You are in a good position with LIPA as kind of an oversight provider. They're looking at these projects for themselves. They're familiar with it. They're going to review any of this design information, the financial information we're provide oversight as well. Kevin's talked about that. So you've got to kind of in a position where you have almost like an owner's rep on your behalf too. So, you know, I think you're going to have that review and analysis, but it's important to ask the questions about warranty and equipment, operations and maintenance. That is critical. You know, certainly if the utility is going to take that on, We have a project right now, Flint actually just finished up with, it's a Subiaco Academy, it's a boys' academy, that is a school, and we built behind the meter on their campus, and their facilities director is doing the same maintenance that the utility would take on. You know, the vegetation management, he's learning the system, the motor issues that go along with that, and kind of that ongoing O&M. So, you know, he's a bright guy and very inquisitive, but also there just isn't a lot of like a heavy burden there to lift. So we would provide training. We could be on call, you know, for O&M, for the team. So there's a lot of ways to kind of structure that to make sure that you're protected in that way.
What
So-
kind of construction time frame if we decide to, what's the system size?
Yeah, I mean, if we were doing 3 megawatts, you know, with the clearing and grubbing and some of the design component that's associated with it, I would guess we would be finished by March or April of next year, depending on how long it takes for procurement. You know, we were talking to Tyler before, we're going up to Anthony, Kansas tomorrow night for approval on their project. They've got a perfect piece of property that's right next to a substation. It's flat, no vegetation. We're anticipating getting started in June, and we would be finished by the end of the year and have it energized on that project. It's a 2 megawatt system, so a little bit smaller, and it's a perfect site. So kind of extrapolate from that. But yeah, I would think April, May next year.
And actually on site, probably 3 months. So a lot of that is nothing on site, on design work, et cetera.
Yeah.
All right, guys, well, thank y'all for coming in today.
Absolutely.
If we have more questions, we'll reach out. We have their email addresses, phone numbers, and I'll talk to y'all over the next couple of weeks, because and I hate projects like this, but this is just how it worked out. But we're either gonna do it or we're not. Because if we don't do it, then we might as well just forget about it. Because if we don't get that tax credit, the project's not viable. Really, the way I look at the numbers. It's only because of that incentive that it makes it look really enticing. It's something to consider, just give it some time. We'll talk again, okay? Thank you guys again, y'all be
Thank y'all very
careful
much.
headed to Kansas.
We appreciate you guys' time. Thank y'all so much.
Thanks for the questions.
Next we have Ashley Davis. She's a community educator, and she's also a Minden lady. And she's from the Louisiana Oregon Procurement Agency. Ashley, thank you for being here today.
Well, yes, thank y'all very much. Like he said, thank you, Mayor, for having me. And of course, I'm from Minden, so this is my forever hometown. Even though I've moved a little bit, I'm still forever from Minden. Seeing some of my classmates, Buddy and I graduated together. Top of the class, really, you know. So I'm just here to talk about April is National Donate Life Month. I work for LOPA, the Louisiana Orchid Procurement Agency, and we support families and support the donation process for families in Louisiana and for those donor heroes. I just wanted to kind of give a brief overview of what LOPA does, what Donate Life means and everything. But first off, I wanted to talk about, honestly, kind of my personal story. My dad received a liver transplant back in 1997. I actually pulled out some of my records. This was in the Minden Press Herald when they were on the front page, had his liver transplant. But my dad was born with ulcerative colitis. He was diagnosed about when he was 12, graduated from Claiborne Academy and everything. We lived here, but then he was in liver failure, and a liver transplant was the only thing that was going to save his life. And so he had his transplant in 1997, so at 11 years old, I was affected by donation. He received a liver from someone that was in a car accident. We didn't get a lot of information back then about that family and everything and about that donor, but that was years that I was given, that my mom and my youngest sister really would have had no memories of him if it wasn't for that transplant. We had 5 extra years with him. And then just that alone affected me. Later on, my uncle, who was also from Minden, he passed away when I started working for Live Book. He had a stroke, and he became an organ tissue and eye donor. And so Gary Hatcher. So I have these connections to Minden, of course, and so I always want to share my story, but most importantly, I want to educate people about donation and how important it is. There's over 100,000 people nationwide waiting for a life-saving transplant. So if you know somebody that's on dialysis, at some point they may need a kidney or a pancreas transplant. If you're having to do dialysis every single day, that is a really tough life to live. And so at some point they may need a kidney or a pancreas transplant. Someone with cystic fibrosis. We've had people from Minden as well who have had cystic fibrosis and needed a lung transplant. And so that is something that somebody's in congestive heart failure. Heart transplants would be needed. Heart valves are also recovered. So there's many different things that people can save somebody's life, and up to 8 people can be saved with organ donation. And then there's also tissue donation, which if you know somebody's torn an ACL or something before, we can recover tendons or ligaments. That can help somebody with that procedure. Sometimes things are recovered that can be used for cancer treatments, like bone cancer or something. So that can enhance up to 75 people's lives. So the ability to touch that many lives is really incredible. I always say every single donor is a miracle because all the things have to happen in a really perfect process. And God kind of plans it all, as I always say, and God puts you where you need to be in life. Doing what I do, I've been doing this for 16 years now, and it's just a great passion of mine to make sure people know about donation and have that education. And most importantly, talk to your families about it. Have that conversation with your family about if they would want to be a donor. Would you want to save somebody's life if this particular thing, you know, if something happened to you? Would you be able to save somebody's life, and would you want that? And vice versa, just having that conversation, especially with young adults or our teenagers getting their license and everything, having those conversations. If they put a heart on their license, that's a really important decision. And we want to make sure that they know what that means. And so I do driver's eds, and we do education with that. I go into high schools, we do biology classes, we look at organs to see why they might need a transplant and everything. So you can be touched by donation, whether it's in the hospital, nursing staff. Sarah has worked in the ICUs and stuff, and so she's seen that side of things. Or if you're connected to a recipient or to a donor family. But most importantly, we want to honor our donor families. And so throughout the month of April, we do a big push, kind of campaign and everything throughout the state of Louisiana and nationwide, but just getting that awareness out there. So y'all being able to support your own community, proclaiming National Donate Life Month, is just more energy and awareness out there for those communities that maybe have not ever heard about donation. And so we just want to get that education out there and share it with anybody that'll listen. So I appreciate y'all listening to me and everything and all the things.
Thank you, Ashley, for being here. At the end of our council meeting, y'all probably saw on the agenda, I'm gonna give Ashley a proclamation on behalf of the city. So
Thank you.
we'll do that.
We
at the end
appreciate
of
it
the
very
meeting.
much.
So we'll have you around a little longer.
Okay, sounds good.
That'd be good.
I've
Thank
learned
you.
lots about solar. I
As
didn't
have
know
we
it was
all.
gonna be so
Tell
educational.
them about the 2 donors.
Okay,
that
yeah.
we promoted and.
So, we also want to talk about, obviously, our donor families. We had Miss McBride. Her son Joshua passed away in 2019, and he became a donor. And so she still works in the school systems here and everything, and she's become part of my family. And so she continues to share his story. She's actually speaking at some things for us next week, just kind of sharing about her son Joshua. He was in a drive-by shooting and ended up becoming an organ donor. And then crazy how, you know, God puts you in situations. Her husband had received a kidney transplant. So she was affected by donation on the recipient side before she even knew about it. And then also Kyle Campbell was also a donor a couple of years ago. And so I know many people are close with that family. And so it was such a courageous thing for that family to do, to honor his wishes and everything. That was the very first organ donor from Minden Medical. So that was the very first thing for this community. And so that was something I feel like is something we can continue to build, even in our smaller communities. It doesn't just happen at Ochsner, at trauma centers. It happens anywhere. anyone can be affected by donation. And we just wanna be able to be there for those hospitals, support them through that process and everything, and learn from it each and every time. We've got many other families that have been affected by donation from this community as well. Mr. Mickey Walker was a donor a couple of years ago. So incredible to be able to, support that family and do different things with Minden Medical. We're actually doing a flag raising on Wednesday at Minden Medical with the PV family. And they're gonna raise the Donate Life flag and everything. And so it's really just getting that awareness out there and talking about it and talking to your kids about it and your family members and friends and, having that conversation. But first and foremost, I always want to honor our donors and just know how much that, their families mean to us. I always say once somebody's become a donor, they're always going to be part of my family, my local family. So anything I can do to support them, I'm always there. So.
Are there any questions for Ashley?
Any questions?
Okay. All right, Ashley,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
And while she halfway has the floor, Sarah Overall, our Main Street Economic Director, has a few things she'd like to share with the council.
And it's not about the budget.
That's good.
This is the official T-shirt for Love the Boot Week. We are gonna try to get this is a extra large. We're gonna try to get a few more larger so that everybody can have one in the room. So that is the 18th through the 26th. I'm asking all of you, council, to come up with some way in your district to get your community, fellow community members involved. If you go on Facebook, there's a link for you to register. There's lots of ideas and projects already there for you, but if you want to come up with something on your own, or if you've got neighbors that want to focus on a certain area that we haven't listed, there's an option for you to do that as well. And I've emailed you all some information about it coming up. So this is our new official notepad map for the city of Minden. This side is the city, and it has all points of interest and parks and different restaurants and lodging, and then we have some like annual events that we typically have every single year that's on this side. And then it zooms in, and this is the Main Street District. So we decided to print them in a notepad. That way it would be easier for people to, like hotels and different businesses, to be able to just have this laid out. We've gotten tons of requests for brochures and different things to just kind of highlight all the different areas. And the more, if we have one for a restaurant, if we have one for an antique shop or current retail, that gets very costly. So we made the decision to do a map. So this is the first official. We'll have one here at City Hall for people that come in and are asking where to go for this, that, or the other. So the farmer's market started back this past Saturday. That will be every Saturday moving forward through the spring into the summer, from 8 to noon. We had a great turnout, even though it was not so favorable weather this past Saturday. But that has started. Bites and Beats is every first Thursday of the month. We have one this coming Thursday. And to kind of kick off our big 250 190th celebration that we're going to have in June, the tourism board is going to be offering free hot dogs for the community on Thursday night. And Mayor Cox and Chief MacGyver have donated water that will be passed out in addition to the food trucks. So we officially have announced our 250-190 campaign or celebration today on social media. It's going to be a 3-day event in June the 11th through the 13th. Lots of fun festivities that will be happening for the entire community. Thursday will be Miller Porters for Bites and Beats. We'll have a water slide, having a great American cookout. We'll have hamburgers and all of the things. Friday night will be all about Minden and the rich heritage over the 190 years. We're going to highlight past dignitaries and principals and teachers and councilmen and mayors and all of the people and the different groups that make Minden, so great and what it stands for, the people. So we'll highlight that on Friday night. The pet collaring ceremony for the mayor pet election will be Saturday morning. We're gonna have a 5K run that morning. The Grilling on Main competition, the People's Choice. We're gonna have duck derby that the chamber puts on, will be that evening. Live music and performances throughout the day, and then fireworks at the end. So it's gonna be a fun, busy weekend. So if you get questions about it, just feel free to reach out to me. But we'll have lots of information that will be pumped out. in the
Tell them
coming
those
weeks.
dates again,
The 11th through the 13th
of June.
of June, and
And
y'all
then
can take one and pass it
Make
around.
sure, I wanna make sure everybody caught it. 250, that's our country's age. 190, that's our city's age.
Right.
So it's that, we're just making it a 250, 190 celebration to celebrate our country and our city.
And I also wanna just hone in, I feel like this is kind of a big year. Western Auto celebrated 90 years recently. Our Minden Coke plant is planning a big 125th anniversary coming up. And then Minden Medical is celebrating 100 years. So lots of big, monumental milestones this year in 2026. So lots of fun.
All right, are there any questions for Sarah? Okay, thank you, Sarah. The only thing I really, and we're running out of time, that I wanted to go over during my time is be sure to get one of these before y'all leave. The street list, I've emailed y'all the street list. My assumption, some of y'all responded, some of y'all have not. My assumption is if you didn't respond, that you were fine with it. So there's two things. Well, y'all all received a text today from Ashley about a special council meeting 1 week from today. I think it's at 11 a.m. And y'all, I think y'all all really, and I appreciate y'all's quick response, agreed to be there. I don't foresee it taking a very long time. If it does, it's because y'all ask a lot of questions. But, so that part. But what happened, Tyler, we had to delay the bid opening for Industrial Drive. We were gonna vote on that tonight. But when they uploaded the files onto the bid software, the contractor started emailing us saying the files wouldn't open and they were running out of time. And when that happens and the hourglass is turned over for them to get their bid documents together, you have to push it back a week. So we had to delay the bid opening a week, so we're not able to vote on it tonight because we hadn't opened bids. We did that on Thursday. This is for Industrial Drive. While we're there Monday, I'm gonna have on the agenda Industrial Drive and then the streets list. I would like for y'all to give me the ability to put that out for, what did you call it, Tyler, earlier?
Authority to advertise.
Authority to advertise for bids for that, and let the contractors the engineers start getting that package together and see what we can do. So, were there any, again, my assumption was, if I didn't hear from you, you were okay with the streets that we had picked. Some of y'all changed it, and that's cool too. I've got my list right here. Let's see where it is. Shepherd Street, I think we all agree it needs to be done and has been for 10 years. Joel Street,
Yep.
MLK Drive, I think that one makes a lot of sense. Winford, Clerk Street from House Street to Pine Street, Country Club from Drake Drive to Germantown, and also Drake Drive to the bottom of the hill, just to kind of get that apron done. So that's the list I'd like to give out, but we'll vote on that list to bundle them up and let me work on that, or Tyler work on it, on Monday next week. There may be some other things we add, but that's the rough plan right now for that bid. Shouldn't take very long at all. So hopefully that bid comes in low. You can quote me on that in the newspaper, journal. Yeah, go ahead.
So one thing I want to bring up to the council, I've kind of mentioned it to the mayor and to Tyler, but, several years back, we started with an issue with Republic. They changed on us going from end dumps to side dumps. And we've been dealing with that issue, making sure trash is picked up and kind of revamped some things, went to the second trash can, but one thing that I've tried to express to Republic in numerous occasions, I know Councilman Pendergrass, the mayor's been involved in some of these meetings, is the leaks that these side boom trucks are creating. For the last 3 weeks, this is just one picture of hydraulic leaks. And I followed this truck throughout the city. I mean, it's just continuously throughout the city. And finally, you know, pictures of the truck leaking. And so, you know, this is not just one occurrence that we've had, and it's in everybody's district. I've got pictures, I've traveled each district, taken pictures, I've compiled this and plan to, if you guys are willing, food for thought, I'd like to send a letter to Republic to try to get this resolved. You know, I've asked, the mayor's been involved in that, and we're just not getting anywhere, and we spend so much money trying to keep this city clean, whether it's with the sheriff's department, condemning properties, and this just makes our city look horrible, you know, and I have complaints about it. I'm sure you guys do as well. So, you know, I'm asking that we put our heads together and we send a demand letter to Republic to get this resolved. You know, I don't think it's fair to the people, you know, who live in Minden. You know, they pay taxes, they provide for all this, you know, and so just some food for thought. So if you would, let me know what you guys think, and maybe we'll sit down and visit with the mayor a little more and come up with a plan.
I have a whole folder full of demand letters. I can get out one and tweak it and resend it. In their defense, and you'll agree with this, you've reported the hydraulic leaks in Woodhaven, and they did send pretty promptly a crew out to power wash it, and then that guy worked hard, but you can't, the problem is, once you make the problem, you can't undo it.
Right.
You're not gonna wash it away.
Yeah.
It made it better, but it's not gonna go away.
But even since then, the problem, you know, occurs when they did that, spent all that money, but they're still not fixing the problem. Because 2 weeks later, we have it happen again and again. So that's kind of, you know, where I'm coming from. You know, they strive to try to take care of us, but they're not getting to the root of the problem. You know, and so I think more than a phone conversation, a meeting, sitting down with them, I know Andy and I have expressed numerous issues with them. I dread Fridays because I know what's gonna happen, you know, even constant communication with them between Buddy and I, you know, because they shut this truck down, they still didn't come back and finish Buddy's district like they said they would, you
He
know.
said they would come on Saturday morning, I get home Saturday evening, my trash is there.
I mean, it's just, you know, things keep falling through the cracks and it keeps getting bigger and bigger. And I feel like it's time to send a stern message.
They actually have bypassed my trays 2 weeks, but they came like on Sunday.
Easter Sunday.
I don't know. But with the second trash cans, do we have to call them for it or? Yes.
To get
Okay,
it.
okay.
That's my gripe for tonight, so.
Does anybody else wanna join in the discussion, or are we good?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I appreciate this brother here. I appreciate you bringing this up. I had a couple of complaints. I came down, took care of the problem, and I told Buddy people that I took care of half his problem. Because mine had been picked up, it had grown, but it came out that my garbage can put a maggots. But that was all right, and stinking. But that's all right, they came and picked it up, and I appreciate them working with. I took your position, brother.
Okay, I
I
appreciate
took care.
it. If nobody else wants to take it to you.
Yeah, I took your position. I should have said my name, but I took it because I couldn't get in contact with you. I
Yes, sir.
appreciate y'all.
Yes, sir.
You should.
Mayor, I have a couple of thoughts on the presentation that maybe y'all already knew, but if I'm understood it, the project's $6 million, and Uncle Sam will pay half of it if we do right.
Right. That's
How
right.
long does it take us to recoup our 3 million? Or when do we start making money with it, I guess?
So that's a great question. On that subject, it's a 30-year, hopefully we would set it up to have a 30-year lifespan. The project, the original design that they did looked more like 6 million, which is what we talked about. We may shoot for more like a 5 unless the council just wants to go bigger. But if we got it around 5 million, that we could structure it different ways. It depends on if we wanna pay it off 100% with everything it generates, or if we wanted to spread it out a little and then need to give relief to the citizens beyond what they're already receiving. You follow me? So we could either structure it to go, pay it all off and then receive the benefits once it's paid off. But if you did it that way, you could pay it all off in 7 years, is what it looked like. Were the rough numbers we were looking at.
Then the other question is, those panels would generate 5 to 7% of the 37 megawatts that we need. I assume their maximum efficiency is day one. I don't know
Right.
if those atoms in them get tired.
They degrade over time.
But I wonder if they lose efficiency.
They do. By year 30, they're still guaranteed to produce 80%, is what they told us, which is not terrible.
No, that's not bad at all.
It really, we're in the power purchasing business right now. And so if we could purchase a power production solution and offset our purchase with that cost of the production, it really makes sense in a lot of ways, to do it. But, it's just another project.
Do they have to be cleaned?
Yes. And we talked about that.
That's part of the maintenance.
Right.
That.
But it didn't
they
sound
entail.
crazy. The ones that I was really interested in personally, they tilt.
Right.
They tilt with the sun.
The ones that are stationary are actually a little more vulnerable because the tilting ones, if there's a storm coming, they can set it up where it tilts away from the storm or tilts in a way where if it's a windstorm, it can handle the storm better. So they have pretty good smart technology. If there's a hailstorm, they'll tilt them up where they won't get a direct blow. So having them where they can rotate sounded like it's more expensive. But it not only just rotates towards the sun for a better return on the solar, but it also can rotate to deflect bad weather. So
But in the long run, the rotating ones would probably you have less maintenance costs, I would think,
on the rotating ones or the stationary?
the rotating.
The rotating ones, they have another mechanism to rotate, so there's that cost of maintenance. It's just all in how you look at
Yeah, the
it.
maintenance and insurance, do they have any kind of insurance, projection?
You're right.
It just seems like after everything, where are we gonna be at as far as our margin on that? It seemed like the margin was getting thinner and thinner as we.
All my experts left the room, and now you're asking some really good questions.
If you said 7 years pay off, what
If
if
we take the
we,
full bill.
that's the full, but if we decide to take some of that income
Right.
and.
And set it aside, or maybe we take it to do batteries, or maybe we take it for maintenance, or whatever. The more you take off of the generated amount, it's just gonna take longer to pay it
How
off.
you want to, basically.
Mhm. But if we did a $5 billion project, which they'll tailor it however we want to, that means our cost is $2.5 billion. Of course, it takes longer to generate it back because you're generating less power, so you're not making your money back quicker. But, we would get $2.5 million back from the feds. Something that we didn't discuss earlier is you don't get it back until like 2028. So you need to know that too. Yeah.
So,
the project has to be finished, and then you go through the process.
If we were to acquire property to do this on, would the batch
So we
also
won't go for property.
factor that?
And we have to use, we could buy our own property to do it, but we'd have to pay for it.
Okay. Well, some of those grants will help with property.
Tyler, am I telling that wrong? It seems like I asked that question. They won't let you do property acquisition.
Plus with the timeline, it's hard to,
And yeah, you have to strategically place that somewhere where you can tie it in cheap. And we have pretty high voltage running down through there. So, it's a good, Mo's looked at it pretty well, and he thinks it's a good tie-in location. Okay. Any more questions? All righty. The rec center is rocking and rolling. In fact, tonight's the first game night. So,
My son plays his first game tonight.
What
It's
time?
hard that I'm not gonna be there. 6 o'clock. Or no, 5:45. He just started.
yeah, I can't get you out here by 5:45. Well, all the best of luck to Calvin. Or is it Freddie?
Fred,
It's Freddie? Wow. Okay.
Town plays tomorrow. The turf is, on the first quad is done. Games will be held tomorrow there.
good looking.
It's so cool.
It is good looking.
It's so cool. This
Nice.
is gonna be it's gonna be a major thing. We already have, several different tournament entities who are wanting dates to host tournaments. It is, it's gonna be a real thing.
Tonight on the council agenda, we have Airstream Management Company, an agreement to enter with them to manage all the tournaments that are coming. And they're the ones, of course, we've had people reach out direct, but they're the ones that actually manage those tournament agreements. So that's on the agenda. I'm asking y'all